Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. The US has reported over 60,000 new cases of COVID-19 as the tally nears 3.9 million. 1,056 people lost their lives overnight with almost 142,000 deaths. Brazil has recorded 1,367 deaths in the last 24 hours. This nationwide death toll has crossed 81,000 with nearly 2.2 million infections. Over in Pakistan, 38 people have lost their lives overnight, raising the death toll to 5,677. There are more than 267,000 coronavirus cases across the country. Globally, the death toll from the virus has exceeded 616,000 with more than 14.9 million infections. Kabul claims the Taliban have killed 7 Afghan security personnel in southern Kandahar province. In a statement, the Kandahar police said clashes started in Takhtpul district when the Taliban attacked security checkpoints. The Taliban have not yet commented on the claim. Egypt says it has killed 18 suspected militants while thwarting a terrorist attack at a security complex in northern Sinai. In a statement, the military said 2 army personnel were killed and 4 others wounded during the encounter in the Bir al-Abed area. The United States has offered a $5 million reward for information leading to the arrest of the Chief Justice of Venezuela Supreme Court. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Michael Jose Marino Perez received money or property bribes to influence civil and criminal cases. The Venezuelan Chief Justice also faces money laundering charges in the United States. The World Anti-Doping Agency has suspended India's national dope testing laboratory for a second period of up to 6 months. In a statement, WADA said the Indian authorities failed to conform to international standards. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the United States has reported over 60,000 new cases of COVID-19 as the tally nears 3.9 million. 1,056 people lost their lives overnight with almost 142,000 deaths. Brazil has recorded 1,367 deaths in the last 24 hours. Globally, the death toll from the virus has exceeded 616,000 with the number of infections over 14.9 million.
The new coronavirus continues to devastate the Americas, with the outbreak getting worse, especially in Brazil, Mexico, and the US. In Brazil, the death toll has crossed 81,000 with nearly 2.2 million infections. The US has reported over 8,000 daily deaths for the first time since early June. The grave state of affairs has turned President Donald Trump from mask skeptic to champion of face coverings. Over months of downplaying COVID-19, Trump admitted the country is headed for the worst.
It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Something I don't like saying about things, but that's the way it is. It's what we have. You look over the world, it's all over the world.
In Asia, China has reported 14 new cases of the coronavirus, 5 of them imported, and the rest in the far western region of Xinjiang. Meanwhile, South Korea's new daily infections have rebounded to over 60. Japan's health ministry has approved the use of dexamethasone as a treatment for COVID-19. The World Health Organization has also given it a nod of assent. But the UN health body has warned Bolivia, where the Senate approved the use of a bleaching agent to prevent and treat the coronavirus.
Reportes al respecto Both within and outside the Americas, we received reports that both Latin Americas and Caribbean, as well as the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration of the United States, have received many reports of the adverse, even great effects to the patients that have consumed these substances. These reports include respiratory failure, changes in heart rhythm, liver failure, and serious digestive issues.
The Australian state of Victoria has announced a daily record as it makes wearing face masks mandatory in public. Meanwhile, Ireland had decided to lessen travel restrictions with 15 European countries.
38 more people have died from COVID-19 in Pakistan, increasing the toll to 5,677. The Health Ministry says the number of infections has exceeded 267,000 after 1,332 tested positive in the last 24 hours. The ministry said so far over 210,000 patients have recovered across the country. It said there are now 51,283 active cases, among which 1,400 are critical. The southern province of Sindh is the worst hit with over 114,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 90,000 cases. Now, Kabul claims the Taliban have killed 7 Afghan security personnel in southern Kandahar province. In a statement, Kandahar police said clashes started in Takhtapul district when the Taliban attacked security checkpoints. The Taliban have not yet commented on the claims. Meanwhile, the group has accused Afghan forces of bombing and destroying a mosque in the Saidabad district of Maidan Vardak province. Moving on, Egypt says it has killed 18 suspected militants while thwarting a terrorist attack on a security complex in northern Sinai. In a statement, the military said 2 army personnel were killed and 4 others wounded during the encounter in the Bir al-Abed area. It said one of the attackers was wearing a suicide jacket, which may have caused a major blast. The army said troops destroyed 4 vehicles, including 3 that were packed with explosives. For over a decade, the Egyptian military has been battling an insurgency in the northern Sinai region. The fighting intensified after the military's 2013 overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says Tehran will strike a reciprocal blow against the US for the killing of top commander Qasem Soleimani. Meeting Iraq's Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi in Tehran, Khamenei said the US wants to create a power vacuum in the regional countries to create chaos and prepare the ground for intervention. Earlier, Kadhimi said Iraq will not allow any threat to Iran coming from its territory. Moving on, Russia says there is still hope to rescue the 2015 Iran nuclear deal and return it into a stable condition. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said this during a meeting with his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif in Moscow. Lavrov said Russia will do anything to preserve the agreement. Zarif also thanked Moscow for its remarkable efforts to keep the pact alive. Both ministers remarked that the deal turned 5 years old last week, with Zarif calling it a historical international agreement. The pact has been in shambles since the US withdrew in 2018 and unilaterally reimposed sanctions on Tehran. Germany has slammed Egypt over its plans to militarily intervene into neighboring Libya. At a news briefing with his Greek counterpart, Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said decisions on military deployments cannot be welcomed. Maas said Germany has long been trying to de-escalate tensions in Libya through talks with local stakeholders. The foreign minister also called on the Libyan parties to return to talks for a sustainable ceasefire. On Monday, Egypt's parliament approved a proposal authorizing military intervention in neighboring Libya. The world leaders from the United States, UAE, Turkey and Germany have discussed the Libyan crisis in a fresh round of phone calls. US President Donald Trump spoke to Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, while Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan held talks with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. In a statement, the White House said Trump and Zayed discussed the importance of de-escalation in Libya through the removal of foreign forces. It said both leaders also discussed regional security issues during the phone call. Meanwhile, Turkey's communications ministry said Erdogan and Merkel discussed developments in Libya and Syria, as well as COVID-19 pandemic. It said the two leaders also discussed bilateral relations with the economy and tourism in particular. Meanwhile, in Israel, thousands of people have protested against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in front of his residence in Jerusalem. The protesters demand Netanyahu's resignation over corruption charges and his government's poor handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Police arrested 10 people and fired water cannons to disperse the protesters. Demonstrators blocked roads and set fire to trash bins in the city center after a demonstration outside Netanyahu's residence. Protesters asked Netanyahu to resign amid a corruption trial in which he faces charges in 3 cases that include bribery, breach of trust and fraud. Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing while being in the office. The United States says it's not withdrawing its troops from South Korea. In a media briefing, U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said he has not issued orders to pull personnel from the Korean peninsula. Esper said Washington will continue to consider adjustments to deployments worldwide for greater strategic flexibility. He said Washington will continue to work with Seoul to achieve the complete denuclearization of North Korea to ensure peace on the peninsula. Earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump asked Seoul to pay more in defense cost sharing that led to speculation about a possible drawdown in the military presence. A U.S. Senate report has accused China of digital authoritarianism. A Senate Foreign Relations Committee report says Beijing is involved in surveillance and censorship within its and beyond its borders. The report says Beijing is exporting digital technologies to increase its global influence. It says Washington is on the verge of losing the future of the cyber domain as Beijing continues to use its digital supremacy. The report recommends creating a public-private consortium to develop US 5G technology to counter Beijing's influence. It also suggests creating a digital rights promotion fund to push back against Beijing's extensive use of mass surveillance. The report comes amid increasingly strained ties between Washington and Beijing. Now, the United States has indicted 2 Chinese nationals for seeking to steal COVID-19 vaccine research and hacking hundreds of companies in the States and abroad. The Justice Department says they were involved in a decade-long cyber espionage campaign that targeted defense contractors. Assistant Attorney General John Demers said Li Xiaoyu and Dong Jiazi also targeted human rights activists in the United States, China and Hong Kong. Federal prosecutors say they stole information not only for themselves but also that they knew would be of interest to the Chinese government. He said Beijing has included itself among nations that provide a safe haven for cyber criminals. Moving on, the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Venezuela's Chief Justice Michael Moreno and announced a $5 million reward on information leading to his arrest. In a statement, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Moreno used his position for personal gains. Pompeo said Moreno also accepted bribes to influence the outcomes of criminal cases in Venezuela. He said Washington will continue to stand against corruption and transnational organized crime. In a statement, Moreno said Venezuela's judiciary will not accept instructions from Washington. Earlier in March, Washington brought narco-terrorism charges against Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and over a country's dozen top officials. Moreno was charged with alleged money laundering as Washington ramps up its campaign to oust Maduro's socialist government. Now, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his country, Egypt and Sudan have reached a major understanding on the dam project. In a statement, the Ethiopian Premier said the understanding will pave way for a breakthrough agreement. The Ethiopian dam project has led to heightened regional tensions. New satellite images show the water level in the reservoir behind the nearly completed dam in its highest in the 4 years. Ethiopia has said it will begin filling the dam's reservoir this month, even without a deal, as the rainy season floods the Blue Nile. The new statement says it has become evident over the past 2 weeks in the rainy season that the dam's first-year filling has been achieved. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, over a dozen hostages have been freed after a 12-hour siege in Ukraine's western city of Lutsk. Interior Minister Arsen Avakov says the gunmen released them unharmed after a 15-minute phone call with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Authorities have arrested the 44-year-old assailant, Maxim Krivosh, saying a lengthy sentence awaits him. Avakov confirmed that Krivosh had several functioning firearms and generally posed a threat. President Zelensky posted a short video captioned, "Everyone should watch the 2005 film Earthlings," in compliance of one of his demands.
After the video is published on social media, in half an hour he would release all the people. That's how it happened, more or less. It seems to me he released hostages in 30 to 40 minutes.
Well, officials say Krivosh had previously spent around 10 years in prison on convictions including fraud and illegal handling of weapons. Well, moving on now, Greece has sentenced 2 Russian sailors to 253 years imprisonment over migrant and human trafficking. Russia's UN Human Rights Committee Vice President Ivan Melnikov termed the punishment harsh, considering the nature of the incident. In an interview, Melnikov said Konstantin Semenov and Ivan Voznikov-Sev has been sentenced to between 7 and 12 years in prison for each migrant. Melnikov said illegal migrants climbed aboard the ship despite refusal by the Russian sailors whose yacht broke down mid-journey. He said both tried to warn Coast Guards but were apprehended and later charged when the officer finally approached. Both sailors pleaded not guilty. Costa Rica has seized over 3,300 kilograms of cocaine worth $50 million in the Caribbean Sea in 2 separate operations. Police said 7 Colombians and 1 Honduran suspects were arrested in connection with the drug bust. In the first operation, the Coast Guard seized over 1,200 kilograms of cocaine off the coast of Cahuita and arrested 4 Colombians. In another operation, authorities seized over 2,000 kilograms of cocaine after intercepting a speedboat in the Caribbean waters. Costa Rican Coast Guard Director Martin Arias said the operations were conducted in collaboration with the United States and Colombian authorities.
Seizures such as those made over the weekend, where we seized more than 3,000 kilograms of drugs, are very important. It is a very strong blow to the drug traffickers because the value of the drugs is about $15 million.
Well, Central America is the focal transit point for illegal drugs movement by the powerful drug trafficking cartels. Well, moving on to Spain now, which says it will give $2 billion aid to developing countries to help fight the coronavirus pandemic. Foreign Minister Nacha Gonzalez said the aid will help save lives and strengthen public health systems. Speaking after the cabinet meeting, Gonzalez said the aid will also protect and restore the rights and capacities of the developing state. Coronavirus cases in Spain have tripled over the last 3 weeks. More than 264,000 people have been infected by the virus, with over 28,000 fatalities in the country. Earlier, the World Health Organization's chief also paid tribute to Spain's sacrifices and leadership to confront the pandemic. Chinese-owned app TikTok is planning to add over 10,000 jobs in the United States over the next 3 years. Currently, the company has 1,400 employees working in the US. TikTok is also considering London, among other locations, for setting up its headquarters. TikTok has distanced itself from Beijing after the US opened a national security investigation against the app's owner, ByteDance. In the English Premier League, Aston Villa beat Arsenal in a 1-0 victory at Villa Park to move out of the relegation zone with 1 match remaining. Trezeguet's first half goal proved enough for the hosts to leapfrog Watford on goal difference, who lost to Manchester City by 4-0 earlier. Despite Arsenal's pressure, Villa hung on for their second victory in 3 games to move out of the bottom 3 for the first time since February. The battle for survival is set to go down to the wire as Villa face West Ham, while Watford travel to Arsenal on Sunday. Both teams have 34 points, with Villa having an advantage for a better goal difference of -26. Cristiano Ronaldo has become the first footballer to score 50 goals in a Serie A, La Liga and the Premier League. The Portuguese international passed the 50-goal landmark in a Serie A as his second-half race saw Juventus beat Lazio by 2-1. Juventus are 8 points clear of Inter Milan on the points table and need 4 points to clinch a 9th consecutive title. The 35-year-old is bidding to become the first Juventus player to win the Serie A Golden Boot since Alessandro Del Piero in 2007 and 8. And now let's have a look at the weather updates. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.